I knew she'd be waiting outside when the letter reached her. That's why I timed it for a Monday, just after the mailman usually passes and just before the bakery next door opens. She always hated Mondays. Said they felt like old bruises, dull, repetitive, and always there. I left the envelope beneath the door of her new place. No note, just the photos. Photos she probably assumed I'd deleted. Photos she definitely forgot I had. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't knock. I didn't want to see her face. Not yet. I wanted her to feel it first, that unmistakable punch in the chest you get when your own choices catch up with you. Then I walked away. And no, this wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was something more surgical. A reset. The beginning of my silence. The affair was over, she'd said. Over, over, over. She said it like a chant, like if she repeated it enough, I'd forget it happened. That man, that just a friend from my yoga group, was gone now. Poof. Like deleting a file. She thought her apology could rewind reality. But she didn't know what I'd done with the months she was pretending to heal us. While she was writing me letters I never opened, I was building a life she'd never be part of again. The thing is, she didn't even cheat well. Not like in those dramatic affairs you read about. No secret hotels or burner phones. No luxury lies. Her betrayal was sloppy. Emotional. Amateur. That's what made it worse. I caught her by how soft she became. Not distant, soft. No more biting remarks about the laundry. No passive-aggressive yawns when I talked about my work. She started calling me Lo again, a name she hadn't used in 2 years. She made my favorite soup. Wore that faded gray t-shirt I once said she looked best in. She even started humming in the kitchen again. That's when I knew. Affairs don't always look like fireworks. Sometimes they smell like rosemary and sound like old songs. When I finally confronted her, she didn't cry. Not at first. She blinked, looked at the floor, then quietly said, I ended it. Weeks ago. As if that changed anything. As if she got to choose when it ended. I left the house that same night. No shouting. No breaking plates. Just silence. I didn't slam the door because I wanted her to hear the click. Soft, final, absolute. I erased myself like a ghost. Changed numbers. Canceled the lease. Packed only the things she wouldn't notice were gone. And for months, I disappeared. Until she came looking for me. But by then, she wasn't ready for what she found. I wasn't trying to disappear forever. At first, it was just supposed to be for a weekend. Maybe a week. Just enough time to hear my own thoughts without choking on hers. I packed light. A laptop, 2 shirts, and a folder with every secret she didn't know I had. I left behind my keys, my ring, and the worn-out sweatshirt she always stole from my side of the closet. I wanted her to feel the quiet I'd been drowning in for months. I thought she might call. Maybe once. Maybe just to ask if I was okay. She didn't. Not even a text. Not even a pathetic emoji. I guess that told me everything. The first place I went was a motel 3 towns over. A place where the vending machine still had gum from 2009 and the Wi-Fi died if you breathed too hard. It was awful. And exactly what I needed. I stayed inside and watched the ceiling for 2 days straight. Didn't eat. Barely slept. I kept opening my email to draft something. Anything. To her. But every time I typed Danica, my hands locked up. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already rotted in my throat. But on the 3rd night, I got a message. It wasn't from her. It was from him. No name. Just an email address that was a weird jumble of numbers, like it was made in a rush. The subject line was one word. Sorry. I stared at it for a long time before clicking. The message was short. 10 sentences, maybe. He said he didn't know she was married. He said she told him I wasn't really in the picture. He said he found out the truth after it ended. He said he still thought about her. He said he knew she'd hurt me. And then, at the end, one line that stayed with me longer than it should have. She doesn't regret cheating. She regrets getting caught. That was the last straw. I didn't respond. I just closed my laptop and started planning my erasure. I changed the billing address on everything. Switched my number to a burner. Deleted my social media, even the old Reddit account she didn't know I had. I told my job I needed to go remote full-time, no office visits. I gave them a P.O. box. I told my landlord I wouldn't renew the lease. Said I needed to be closer to family, which was ironic, since I hadn't spoken to mine in 4 years. And then I left. I moved into a town so small it didn't even have a Starbucks. Bought a car in cash, a dented red Corolla that smelled like pine and regret. I started sleeping again. Not well, but better. I grew a beard, even though I hated it. Changed the way I dressed. Changed the way I walked. I kept waiting for her to find me, to call, to show up. But the weeks turned into months, and there was nothing. I didn't know if I was relieved or crushed. Maybe both. Until that afternoon in April. It was raining, the kind of soft, stubborn rain that turns everything into gray. I was at the laundromat, folding a load of towels, when I heard the bell over the door. And there she was, Danica, standing in the doorway like some ghost that took a wrong turn on the way back to the past. She looked thinner, wetter. Her hair was longer now, but tangled. Her eyes were swollen, like she'd been crying or hadn't slept. She didn't speak at first, just stared at me, like she couldn't believe I was real, like I wasn't supposed to exist anymore outside her imagination. And all I could think was, you found me, but you have no idea who I am anymore. She finally opened her mouth and whispered, Lowell, please. But I turned away, because I wanted her to feel it. The same hollow silence she left me in. The same unbearable, echoing nothing. Only now it was hers. She stood there, rain dripping from her jacket, arms limp at her sides, like she'd been carrying guilt until her body gave out. The door closed behind her, the laundromat's bell still echoing in the silence. I didn't look at her. I didn't offer her a seat. I just kept folding the towels like I hadn't vanished from her world on purpose. Like she hadn't broken mine into sharp little pieces and left me to bleed quietly. I thought maybe she'd yell, maybe beg, maybe throw out one of her dramatic lines like she used to, the kind she rehearsed in her head to make herself sound like the victim. But all she said was, You're really here. I said nothing. She took a cautious step forward, like I might bolt if she moved too fast. Lowell, I know I don't deserve anything from you. But please, just listen for a minute. Please. I finally looked at her, not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see if there was anything left of the woman I used to love. But all I saw was someone lost, clinging to the wreckage she created, hoping I hadn't floated too far away. I don't want anything, I said, my voice flat, dry, barely mine. You had months to talk. You didn't. Her lips trembled. I didn't know where you went. I thought maybe you died. I cut her off. That would have made things easier, huh? No loose ends. No guilt. Just a clean break. No, she whispered, eyes wide. Don't say that. I dropped the towel onto the table and finally faced her fully. What do you want, Danica? She blinked fast, as if that question physically hurt. I came because I've changed. I've been in therapy. I've been working on myself. I haven't touched a drop of alcohol in 6 months. I've gone back to painting. Real painting, not the performative junk I did before. Is this your redemption tour? I asked, because I didn't ask for tickets. That shut her up. For a second, she looked like she might crumble right there on the tile floor. But then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled something out, a worn, folded piece of paper. She placed it on the laundry table, gently, like it was some sacred thing. It was a sonogram, and that's when I felt the world tilt under my feet. She looked up at me with eyes so red it felt like staring into a warning sign. It's not his, she said. I had the test. Twice. It's yours. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. All the air in my lungs turned to ice. My throat closed like it was trying to stop the flood rising inside me. You left before I knew, she added quickly, her voice cracking. And when I found out, I didn't even know how to reach you. I thought about going through your job, but I didn't want to ruin whatever new life you were building. I didn't want to show up and blow it all up again. But you did, I whispered. She nodded, tears finally spilling. Yeah, I did. Because I didn't come back to ask you to forgive me. I came to tell you you're going to be a father. And if you walk away again, I won't stop you. But I had to look you in the eye and say it. And just like that, every emotion I buried came rushing back at once. Rage, sorrow, fear, confusion, even that faint, foolish flicker of hope I thought I'd finally extinguished. I stared at the sonogram. I stared at her. And I realized, she wasn't here because she missed me. She was here because I was the only part of her story she hadn't rewritten yet. The air between us was suffocating. The sonogram sat like a grenade on the table, and I couldn't decide whether I was supposed to pick it up or run. Danica just stood there, still dripping from the rain, watching me like I was the one who held her future in my hands. And maybe, in some twisted way, I did. But what she didn't understand, or refused to understand, was that I no longer wanted that power. Not from her. Not after everything. I don't know what you expect me to say. I finally muttered, not looking at her. My eyes stayed fixed on that blurry black and white image, a small ghost of a shape. Too early to tell anything. Too early to feel anything. Or maybe I just couldn't. I don't expect anything, she said softly. I just needed you to know. No. I snapped, louder than I meant to. See, that's the problem. You didn't need to tell me. You wanted to. For closure. For some absolution. So you could say, look, Lowell, I told you. I gave you a chance. But that's not honesty. That's another performance. She flinched, but she didn't back away. You think I planned this? I think you've always planned everything. I hissed. You planned the apology. You rehearsed what you'd say when I didn't scream or cry. You knew I wouldn't slam the door. That's why you came here and not anywhere else. Because you knew I wouldn't cause a scene. I didn't know where else to go, she said, voice cracking. There's no one else who. Who what? Believes you? I laughed, bitter and hollow. Yeah, I was that guy. The one who believed every just a friend. And I'm fine, really. You know what's worse than finding out your wife cheated on you, Danica? Realizing that you were the backup plan the entire time. She went silent. And in that silence, I saw it, the smallest flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not grief, calculation. Just a flicker, but I caught it. And suddenly, everything shifted. You knew this would pull me back, I said, my voice quieter now. You knew this, baby. This possibility would change the narrative. Because now I'm not just the husband you betrayed. I'm the father who walked away. It rewrites everything, doesn't it? I didn't come here to trap you, she said, too quickly. But you knew what it would do to me, I replied. You knew exactly what you were detonating the second you stepped into this room. Danica's lips trembled. I didn't want to go through this alone. You should have thought about that when you were in his bed, I said. The words left my mouth before I could stop them, and she physically recoiled like I'd slapped her. We stood there for a long time. The dryer in the corner buzzed. Outside, rain tapped gently on the glass. Inside, my world was cracking in places I didn't know were still breakable. I'm not him, Danica, I finally said. I'm not going to ghost you or deny the truth if that child really is mine. But don't think for a second that this means you and I are anything again. You came looking for me, but what you found isn't the man you remember. That man doesn't exist anymore. You killed him. She nodded slowly, as if accepting a verdict she always knew was coming. I'll leave now, she whispered, her voice barely audible. You know where to find me, if you want. She turned and walked out, leaving the sonogram behind. She didn't even glance back. And me? I sat down, and for the first time in months, I cried. Not because of what she'd done, but because now, I had a decision to make. And no matter what I chose, someone would lose. I didn't sleep that night. I don't even remember lying down. My mind kept circling back to the sonogram, her face, that flicker in her eyes, and most of all, the question I tried not to ask out loud. What if she's lying? Again, what if this isn't mine? What if this is just another performance to reclaim control over something she lost? By sunrise, I already knew what I had to do. I didn't want to see him. I'd avoided it for months. In my head, the man she cheated with was a blurry shadow, a walking cliché, smug, charming, someone who didn't care who got destroyed as long as he got what he wanted. But after he emailed me that night back at the motel, part of me filed that away, quietly, just in case I ever needed it. And now I did. It took some digging. His email domain was corporate, private wellness brand out of Brooklyn. Some overpriced health startup, of course. I searched employee bios, cross-referenced faces with the photo I'd been sent months ago, and found him. Camden Reese, Director of Community Partnerships. God, even his job title made me want to throw something. But it wasn't rage that pushed me to drive 3 hours into the city. It was clarity. I couldn't let her version of the truth be the only one. I found him in a corner cafe near the company's building. He was sitting alone, scrolling through his phone, drinking a matcha latte like a walking stereotype. I approached slowly, unsure if he'd recognize me. He did. The second he saw me, his face tightened. No smugness, no arrogance, just quiet dread. He stood up halfway, not sure whether to run or apologize. You got a minute? I asked, voice shaking more than I wanted it to. He nodded. Yeah, of course. We sat. Silence stretched between us until I finally said, she says she ended it. That it didn't mean anything. That she told you I was out of the picture. He let out a slow breath and rubbed the back of his neck like the guilt was stored there. She did. At first. She said you two were separated. That you lived in the same house, but hadn't spoken in months. I believed her. God help me, I believed her. Did she ever mention trying to fix the marriage? I asked. He hesitated. No. In fact, she made it sound like you were toxic. Controlling. That you isolated her from her friends. I didn't want to pry, but it painted a picture, you know? I looked away, fists clenched under the table. That lie stung more than the affair. So she played both of us. He nodded. She ended it after I started asking questions. I told her I wanted something real, something clean. She ghosted me the next day. No closure. Just gone. And she never told you she might be pregnant? That caught him off guard. He blinked. Pregnant? She says it's mine, I said flatly. She showed up yesterday with a sonogram. Camden leaned back, stunned. He shook his head slowly. I swear to you, I had no idea. If I did, I would have. Hell, I don't know what I would have done. But I wouldn't have let it in like that. I stared at him. He looked shaken. Real. Not the villain I imagined. Just another idiot like me who fell for her performance. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. You think she's telling the truth? He asked. I paused. About what? About it being yours. About it even being real. I felt my stomach drop. She didn't send me anything, he continued. No text. No accusation. Nothing. If she thought it was mine, don't you think I would have heard by now? And if it's yours, why now? Why months later? Why not call, email, write anything? Unless. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I stood up. I couldn't breathe in there anymore. Camden looked up at me and said, I don't know what she's trying to pull, man. But whatever it is, it's not about love. I didn't answer. I just left the cafe, walked 3 blocks in the wrong direction, and sat on a curb like a man who just realized he's inside a maze with no exits. She said the affair was over. She said the baby was mine. She said she wanted nothing but peace. But all I could hear in my head was Camden's voice. You think she's telling the truth? And for the first time, I truly didn't know. I drove back in silence. No music. No phone calls. Just the constant grind of tires and the dull ache in my chest. Camden's words kept repeating in my head, like static I couldn't tune out. If she's lying about the baby, what else is she capable of? What if this was all a setup? Not for redemption, but for control. When I got back into town, the rain had stopped, but the streets were still slick, as if they were trying to reflect a version of the world I didn't recognize. I didn't go home. I didn't even go to the laundromat where she'd cornered me. I went to the small diner across from the post office, a place with bad coffee and worse lighting, and texted her a single word, now. She showed up 20 minutes later. Her makeup was cleaner this time, her posture straighter. She thought we were about to have a moment. A talk. Some emotional breakdown that ended in forgiveness. She was wrong. I slid the sonogram across the table toward her. She looked confused at first, then slightly alarmed. I talked to him, I said calmly. Camden. He didn't know about the baby. She swallowed hard. He's not the father. I didn't ask that. I said he didn't know, which is strange, considering the timing. She looked away. Lot. Save it, I cut in. I'm not accusing you of anything. Not yet. But I am demanding one thing. She blinked. What? A DNA test. When the baby's born. She froze. Her expression didn't shift immediately. That took a few seconds. But then the smile faded. Not sadness. Not offense. Panic. I'm not doing this for revenge, I continued. I just want the truth. If this child is mine, I will take responsibility. But if it's not, if there's even a sliver of doubt, you don't get to pin it on me and walk away clean. She sat back, crossing her arms. So that's what this is now? You think I'm lying again? I didn't flinch. I think I'd be an idiot not to wonder. She said nothing, just stared at me like she couldn't believe I'd stopped playing the part. But I had. I wasn't her fallback anymore. I wasn't the man who'd fold the second she cried. I was done playing the villain in her story, and I was about to become something much worse. The man who walked away for good. The envelope came on a Thursday. No knock. No fanfare. Just a quiet thud at the front door of my rental. The clinic's logo printed neatly in the top corner, no mistaking what it was. I sat there staring at it for a long time, didn't open it right away. It felt too final, like once I looked inside, the version of reality I'd clung to, whatever scraps were left, would vanish for good. When I finally tore it open, my hands were steady. That surprised me. The letter was brief. The child was not mine. Just 5 words buried in medical jargon, but it was all I needed. I didn't feel anger or relief, not even heartbreak. I just felt clear. It was like someone had wiped the fog off a mirror, and I could finally see myself again. The version of me that existed before her, before the lies, before the months of silence and second-guessing. I made one phone call. It went to voicemail. "Danica," I said, keeping my voice cold and even. "I got the results. He's the father, not me. Don't contact me again." I didn't say goodbye. I didn't give her space to respond. I hung up and blocked the number immediately. Then I grabbed the envelope, drove straight to her apartment, and slid the letter under her door, exactly like she had done to me all those months ago. Only this time, I wasn't offering answers. I was leaving her with the question of who she really was now that all the lies were gone. She called from a different number that night. I didn't answer. She emailed. I didn't open it. She sent a message through someone we used to know, her cousin Elise, asking if I could just meet her once, face to face, no drama, no manipulation. I said no, and I meant it. But then, the next morning, she did something she hadn't done before. She showed up in public, at my work cafe, tired, disheveled, no makeup, no armor, just raw desperation etched across her face. I saw her the moment I walked in. She stood up, eyes red, hands trembling, and in front of everyone, she said, "Lowell, please, just talk to me. You don't understand what I've lost." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. I just leaned close and said, "No, you don't understand what you threw away." And I walked past her, not to hurt her, but to finally save myself. She didn't come back after that day at the cafe. No more calls, no more notes, no more uninvited visits. And for the first time in what felt like years, the silence didn't feel threatening. It felt like space, like oxygen, like I could finally exhale without choking on the past. I kept the letter from the clinic, but I didn't frame it like some victory. I tucked it into a drawer, not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to remember the day I chose to stop letting someone else define who I was. Weeks passed, then months. People stopped asking about her. Her name disappeared from conversations like it was never supposed to be there in the first place. My world didn't crash. It rebuilt, slowly, awkwardly, but stronger than before. I started drawing again. Nothing fancy, just pencils and cheap sketchbooks, but it felt good. Like recovering something I'd forgotten was mine. I'd fill pages at the park, at the library, at this little bookstore cafe I'd grown fond of. The owner's daughter, Nadia, always left out a cookie when she saw me come in. I think she felt bad for how often I looked tired. Or maybe she just understood what loneliness looked like. Either way, I appreciated it more than I let on. One day, she sat across from me with her own sketch pad. Said nothing, just started drawing. It was awkward at first, the kind of quiet that makes you overly aware of your breathing, but eventually, it became natural, easy, like we didn't need words to rebuild a kind of trust. She never asked about Danica. She never asked about the scars. She just let me exist, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough. We're not together. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But we share mornings now. Coffee, conversations, laughter that doesn't feel borrowed or forced. And that, to me, is more valuable than anything I ever chased before. Sometimes I still think about Danica, not with bitterness, but with distance, like a painting I hung on the wall too long because I thought it meant something. But now the wall is blank, clean, waiting for something better. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not broken. I'm just free. And for the first time in my life, that's all I need.